What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday afternoon. I'm with my man BJ. Excited to talk this nice, solid 7-game slate. First thing I always do when I look at it, I always look at the injury report. We have a laundry list today. Get used to that anytime. March, April, NBA DFS. I mean, heck, December NBA DFS has laundry lists half the time, but that's no change there. Then I go and I look at the times of the games. All 7 games locked within 1.5 hours of each other. Absolutely love that. 9 games total on the day, 7 on the main slate for DraftKings, other 2 on the night slate. It's a solid showdown slate as well. 2 games at 7 Eastern, 2 games at 7:30, 2 games at 8, 1 game at 8:30 Eastern. After that, time to count the money and watch some basketball. Hey, BJ?
It sounds like a plan to me.
I love it. How you doing today?
Man, good. A little bit of a schedule change. I'm good with it. Hey, great weekend. Sun's out. Like I said, another day in paradise, and we get to watch the basketball tonight. Hopefully win some money.
Absolutely. How's the weather been in California? What are you guys averaging over there? Staying in the low 70s, 60s?
Yeah, it's funny. Born and raised San Diego. I'm up in the high desert, right? Which kind of has a negative connotation sometimes, but just windy. We've been lucky though, man. I mean, this weekend I had a golf tournament, it was like 70 degrees out, no wind. Which is a bigger factor than the actual weather itself. But yeah. Man, no complaints over here. Happy to wear shorts again on the golf course.
I love it. How'd you golf?
Good, man. I brought it up on Friday. We got games to get to, but it's the biggest tournament of the year. It's our club's President's Cup. So March Madness, 64 guys, mono match play. Yeah, dude, it's pretty badass. And we had the first round, so everybody plays. Ended up winning my match. I was down 2 through 4 and ended up winning 4 and 3. So nice. I got a little hot there and played well, but got another match tomorrow. Hopefully I can get into the Sweet 16.
I love it. Good luck with that. That sounds like an awesome little format for sure. Gotta say hi to people in chat like always. Coach Sav, Richard, Carmen, Jason, Kai, Richie Smalls, Daniels, Kicks, Lachlan, Langley, Mark, Ricky, Wins a Lot, Roddy, Sean, Al Money, Network, Gangrene, Lyle, Jose, Russell, Go Fies, Big Ed, and appreciate everyone hanging out. We always love people in the YouTube comments. We always love that like button, subscribe button for sure. You guys are what makes this show a lot of fun, though. Seeing so many familiar faces. Man, I've never seen so many people talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. already. Definitely got burnt. I mean, Maxey hurt, Kyrie hurt, Jaren Jackson right away. What a mess. Hopefully it's not quite like that yesterday, but it's NBA
That
DFS.
Was my first thought when you brought up the NBA DFS stuff. I was like, dang, man, I started getting flashbacks. You're like, damn, so it's officially started. Obviously, I can't think of a slate this year that had as many in-game injuries to like important pieces as last night was, but I mean, that's the beauty and the downfall of DFS is, people that, obviously like myself that were 100% exposed to Triple J last night. I mean, there's other guys that, sneak in 20%, 30% of lineups without them. And they're just still counting their money this morning. So that's the beauty of the game, I guess, huh?
Absolutely. Let's hope we can avoid that. But that's part of always have bankroll management. NBA is a long season. There's MLB coming up. Obviously, there's a million different DFS sports as you can see all the way up here. Plenty still going on right now. No better time to join, but keep the bankroll management. You have to prepare for the worst, especially if you're in the GPP life. You can go weeks without winning. But when you do win, you hope it's like our man Roddy right here. 50,000 big ones yesterday on FanDuel. Shout out to you, Roddy. Awesome stuff there. Been following for a long time. Big boy win yesterday. Awesome stuff to you. We're showing off SaberSim, unless you guys have been living under a rock or just finding us for the first time. And if you are, love to have you. We appreciate it. But SaberSim is our new partner. We just partnered with them last week. This is our partner optimizer. We have the content. SaberSim, the best optimizer out there, we are now partnered with. And we have multiple deals that you can access SaberSim. The core, if you had Shiptimizer prior, you do get 150 lineups on SaberSim with late swap, which is huge in NBA. For only $30 more, the best deal, the best value. The starter gets you 350 more lineups, also gets you SaberSim's projection and ownership for all the sports they do have it for, even if we do not offer. Contest flashback as well, which is also huge. Allows you to go back and look at different contests and different sports, see what players did. If you want to see what Rio did, what BJ did, etc., you are able to see that. then you can make little tweaks and stuff to your process. If you are playing $1,000 a month or plus, or you're playing some pretty big money, I would recommend maybe taking a look at contest sims. It's not for anyone or for everyone. It's definitely for people. I use them. It's not for everyone though. $297. Yeah, it's a chunk of change. If you're only playing $100 a month in DFS, I don't think you should spend 3x that money on an optimizer you put in your contest. If you're playing $1,000 plus though, contest sim's very, very good. Shout out to SaberSim, always improving on it. You can also build 5,000 lineups with that. And if you do like detailed stat projections to bet, stuff like that, you are able to get more in-depth things from SaberSim as well. But core, the core is the normal package. If you're grandfathered in, 150 lineups, $30 more the best value. The starter, and if you do want to try out contest sims, you can see that right here. You can find all of that on our website, shipitnation.com. If you click it, you'll click join now. All of those options will be available to you. We will be screen sharing SaberSim. BJ is going to be talking game by game. I'll add in my thoughts as I see fit, and I will be pretending like I'm one of y'all listening to the show. I also have the slate plan up from Rio. I'm not pulling it up. He puts too much work into it. Rio enjoying a little day off from the show. Schedule flopped on or flipped around a little bit, but I'm looking at his stuff, and I would make adjustments based on the slate plan, based on the stone in this stuff as well. Again, I'm not going to be just showing Rio stuff or doing that. You got to be a member to check it out. But when BJ's talking, I will be making adjustments game by game. That's all I got. Any broad slate overview, or do you just want to go game by game?
Yeah, no, not much here. I mean, it's kind of a typical slate. We're going to find some games we want to target, some games we want to get rid of. And then, the possibilities that happen, as you brought up to start the show, as we kind of close out the NBA season or get on the final chapter, if you will. There's so many moving parts as far as, take the Sixers tonight, do they tank? Paul George, does he play? Maxey already out. So that would be kind of a broad slate overview before we dive in, is that obviously the players that we're going to talk about, some of them will be chalky and for good reason. But there's going to be plenty of scenarios where we want to zig when the field zags and give us that extra little umph and that extra EV to help take us down first.
I love it. Nobody better to do it than our man BJ. Of course, Ham, Rio on content as well. You can find all that. NBA, all the content. Stone, Cash Reports for myself, Core Report for those three. Showdown content as well when the slate is good. And, of course, Rio slate plan right here. Let's jump right into it again. 7 games on tap on DraftKings. The first one of the night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Houston Rockets, 4-point underdogs to the Indiana Pacers. 231 total. Injuries in this one, no Fred VanVleet for Houston. On the Indy side, Benedict Mathurin is doubtful. That is all I'm seeing in terms of injury news here. Again, I'm filtering these games. So I'm just clicking filter Houston, filter Indy. So we're just showing that. I'm going to take an average of SHIPIT Nation and SaberSim's projections and ownership right now. And again, you do have that if you are a starter and above. Otherwise, you do just have the SHIPIT Nation projections. Then on the sort by value, first thing I always like to do, actually I like going ownership and value. So I click ownership. We have 5 guys projected above 10%. Clicking on value, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 above the 5x mark, which is kind of what I'm always looking at. Usually that does kind of tie into ownership as well. So right off the get-go, looks like a game we can target. Close spread, pretty solid total. And when we get to it, like we have 12.5 point spread, 14.5 point spreads, a 207 total. So this does have good total, good spread. Looks like a solid game to target. How do you see it?
Yeah, exactly that. I think the Rockets kind of took the approach last night of resting everybody and getting everybody right for a game like this that they can win. They aren't favored in this game, as it was 3.5 on my notes. I don't know what it's changed to as of now. 4. Okay, so interesting spot here. I mean, right away we're going to get off the rip. We're going to find a popular Nembhard and a popular Neesmith, both in the mid 4Ks from the Pacers side. But starting on the Rockets side, away team first. Not seeing tons of ownership as far as a must kind of get to guy that you might be missing. I think all these guys are priced really fairly. Pacers, we don't necessarily want to pick on them, but we don't want to fade guys because of the matchup. So kind of a slower start in what could be a good game. I think I'll start from the approach right away that I'm only going to get to one Rocket on this slate. I prefer Şengün at 9,100, kind of, as we have on the Stone, don't know what we have on Saber, but under 5% here. 91, took the night off last night. I like his upside as compared to Amen Thompson at 8,500. Obviously going to get a million minutes as we've seen before coming off the night off. But that's going to be kind of my stance. Either one is going to be okay with me. And then I'll highlight Jalen Green at 7,200. Just takes a million shots, kind of the typical stuff. He did play last night. I think he was right around that 30-minute mark. Didn't really get over that, if I'm not mistaken. But we can always play him, especially at low ownership. He looks like to be the highest owned as we have here on the Stone. So maybe an avenue to get away from it. At 7,200, it's a pretty fair price if his shot does fall with plenty of upside above. But kind of starting on the slower side as a team that I'm not really targeting, as I alluded to first to kind of start. We're going to go max one Rockets in my portfolio, if you will. So I won't be getting too many of these. I think where we're going to want to get mini stacks, if you will, or game stacks, I'm going to get many more players on the Pacers side. As I started, Nembhard and Nesmith, are both going to be very popular in the mid 4Ks. Nesmith, the last two with no math run, has gone for 29 and 30 minutes. And then Nembhard's played 37 minutes in back-to-back games. Kind of getting used to the idea that Nembhard is going to be an example of somebody that's good to get his defensive assignment from the other team. Tonight, I think it's going to be Jalen Green. We know Jalen Green plays tons of minutes, and Nembhard is going to kind of play the same minutes as he is. And at least that's the belief that I'm going under. So I anticipate another huge night here as far as minutes goes from Nembhard. The problem is in his last two games, he's taken 5 and 7 shots. So not really necessarily like somebody that's going to pour in a bunch of points. It's going to help you with the upside. And that's going to kind of lead me right away to think about getting off some of these chalky pieces. Yes, you cannot, complain about the minutes that he's receiving, especially at the tag. But I'm going to want a guy that's going to shoot the ball to help me, really get my full ceiling from him. So he'll be kind of on my list as we start going through the slate of one of these players that I'm going to look to get into lineups because they give you so much relief as you make lineups, but definitely an avenue to not get enough upside, which would lead to a fail in the mid 4Ks. Some other guys that I am interested in game stacks would be Halliburton at 8,600. Essentially no ownership is what I'm seeing. And some interesting stuff that I saw from him. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I have it written down, more than 20 potential assists over the last week and a half or so. Wow. That's a huge number, especially when you add in that he does have the upside of scoring and getting hot from the three-point land. A handful of these points, if he does hit shots, will come at the hands of Halliburton. So obviously we know his upside, but he'll be a highlight in this game for me. And then to get a little bit different from the builds, I don't mind kind of building a Halliburton or get to one of these two guys, Siakam or Miles Turner. Yes, I mean, more Siakam versus Turner. Seems like you have some letdown spots, but these are both guys that are going to play, low 30s in minutes. They're going to take a handful of shots, and they're going to be on the floor. So, like as you alluded to before, this is an interesting game. This would be a third or the fourth game on the slate that I would really want to target. If that's the case, if I'm making a handful of lineups, I would take it from the approach of 2 Pacers to 1 Rocket and kind of get some mini stacks going. But really the highlight of this game, in my opinion, is deciding if you're going to get to Nembhard or Nesmith and either go with the ownership or get away from it.
Great breakdown. So a couple of things when you were talking, it sounded like, again, Nembhard will be one of the chalkier pieces on the slate. 28% average between SHIPIT Nation and SaberSim. It sounded like you were fine with it if you're around the field, but it wasn't something that you wanted to get. Like, you'd rather be underweight than crazy overweight at this ownership based on what it sounded like. So what I did is I put max 30%. Again, if you think this number would be 33%, you could say 35 or whatever. And all this is saying is it will not let me, SaberSim will not let me get more than 35% Andrew Nembhard in my teams. It will let me get 5%. And again, then you can go when you build the lineups, you are able to edit exposures from there. Maybe you're like, I don't want 5%. I want like 15%. But it's not it's making sure you have less than 35% and then anywhere from 0 up until 35%. If you're like, I for sure want 15%, but I don't want more than 35, that is how you do it right there. You like Tyrese a little bit at ownership. So I just said, let's force him to be overweight. 6% would be overweight to 3%. Now, what BJ was saying about the team stacks for Houston, he said he didn't want more than 2 Rockets in any lineup. He just wanted 1 Rocket or no Rockets. So what I did, team stacks, go to 2 stacks. This is saying 2 players on the same team. I just unclicked Houston. 3, unclicked Houston. 4, 5. You said you wouldn't want 3 Pacers either, right? You said 2 max?
No, yeah, I would go 2 max, but I would not be against 3 because we have the mid 4K guys. It doesn't eat up a ton of salary. So if you believe that this team, what do we have for their team total? 117 points. If you think that they exceed that number, I'm okay getting to the 3. I wouldn't do it. I prefer 2, but I'm okay with 3.
Makes a lot of sense. So again, he's okay with 3. So I didn't uncheck Indy at 3, but I unchecked him at 4, 5, 6. So again, that is just making sure you will not have any more than 3 Pacers in any lineup. You will not have any more than 1 Rocket in any lineup. Yeah, that's the main takeaway there. I don't really have too, what are your thoughts on Tari Eason? I wanted to ask you that. He's, in terms of ownership-wise, let's see. Yeah, we have him at 14. SaberSim's got him a little more. Take the average at 17, 5.4K right in the mid-tier. Any thoughts on Tari? I always enjoy I always hate playing Siakam. Tari's a guy I'm always fine playing because he can find points in bunches, and the price tag is always fair.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just, it's a little tough for me on this slate because realistically, what is he, the 3rd offensive option? And I didn't bring it up, but I am really curious to kind of see how this game goes from a standpoint of take, Cam Whitmore last night, right? Just absolutely, kind of played, well, him and Reed Shepherd, but him specifically kind of lost some minutes over the last couple of weeks, played really well. I don't think he makes a dent, obviously, to be playable, but I'm kind of curious where they go from, him having such a strong night last night and then coming in to kind of switch up some different rotations. I don't think it changes a lot, but I think he's the 4th option. And if I see double-digit ownership and he's going to be the 4th offensive option, I'm going to stay away, but don't hate it as we have 7 games and there's so many avenues to being able to exceed a $5,400 price tag. For sure. I love it. We're going to move to the next game. The last point I just wanted to mention, some people might be like, oh, why would you only put 5% for Halliburton or 35% max and give so much leeway? I don't want to make the gap so narrow and just pretty much tell SaberSim exactly what to do. I want SaberSim to have a little of their own thoughts in it. I mean, their model's so powerful. The ownership, projections, correlation, whether it's negative or positive. If you have 1 Rocket, you're more likely to get 1 Pacer than no Pacers. Whether it's if you had 1 Magic, it doesn't care if you have a Pacer or not because the game stack, the flow of the game, etc. All of that is taken into account for SaberSim. So I don't want to just not allow SaberSim to do its job, but I want to narrow the path and not just click 2 buttons and just let SaberSim do everything. I want to find that happy medium. That's how I would recommend other people, especially if you only have 150 teams you can build up here or 500 teams. Try and really, if you don't want to play Nembhard or Turner or whatever, just unclick them right here. If you want to lock Nembhard, just lock them because your lineups will then be a lot more accurate on what you want. And then you can go and some people are I just hand build. You can virtual hand build. I know for sure I want 3 guys. Okay, lock those 3. For sure you don't want a couple others. And then just look at how the lineups. You can look at projections, ownership, how it looks to you and do it that way. So again, I don't want to go. And I'll jump in there on your last note. Everybody knows, when we kind of look at the NBA team, I'm not grinding 150 like Rio is or like you are on a nightly basis. I'm my 1 to 5 lineups depending on the slate and depending on the content. And that's a powerful thing that I do. I will let Saber do all of its work. And then I'll go through and see okay, interesting. They're getting this many game stacks. Okay, what can I make? What can I take some of these lineups and take out, like you said, 3 or 4 guys and then hand build the rest of my lineup and kind of find the swap. So that's a very powerful avenue that I do. I love it. I absolutely love that. And yeah, finding what your forte is. NBA, most sports nowadays actually, but NBA for sure. I'm more of an MME guy. I know Rio's a little more MME, but I'd say he's both. He's one of the GOATs at NBA for sure. You specialize in more 1 to 5 and you have more control over it. So find a play style that works. And again, we talk about that a good bit. If you go more education, NBA, we have it for all 5 of these sports, but definitely check it out. If some people I'm just new to NBA a little bit, definitely check out this education video Hoop Tambo and myself did. But all right, let's keep it rolling, get back to more games. But I really think the SaberSim talk and just the game theory and how to apply your own thoughts with SaberSim, little changes here and there is very, very important when building lineups. But we're going to get back at it, crank out the next game on the slate. Orlando Magic, 7.5-point favorites over the Toronto Raptors. 207.5 total. Injuries on the Toronto side. No Grady Dick. No O'Shea Abaji.
On the other side, for Orlando, Cole Anthony is questionable. That is the only injury news I see there. By far the lowest total on the slate, 207.5. I mean, Magic usually not games. I don't like picking on the Magic too much, a slow-paced team. The Rockets, as you see, implied for under 100 points. That's no good. That's no good at all.
I'm waiting for one of these games this season to get under 200. It won't happen because that's not a thing anymore. But, back in 5-10 years ago, you would see a 193 total, and this is exactly what it reminds me of.
Absolutely. So, again, not just totals don't say everything in DFS. Franz can still put up 50. Paul can still do his thing. But generally, low totals, two healthy squads, not great. Do you have any lean on Cole Anthony and his Q tag, and then take it away from there?
I do not. I don't really know where the injury happened. I kind of searching through Twitter. I don't know if it was a shoot around thing or whatever it may be, but there's no clear answer here. Either way, if he's in or out, I don't think it matters. You brought it up. I mean, this isn't a game I'm getting a much that I really like. 7 games, 208 total. So we'll keep it short here. I mean, we're going to have some value, I believe, with Jacoby Walter. 3,700, I'm projecting him for kind of the higher in 20 minutes with the Grady Dick and Abaje stuff. So I'll kind of just throw a note there. And then the two other main pieces are going to be, obviously Franz and Paulo. I won't be getting to any plays in this game. So I don't want to spend too much time on it after, I kind of share my piece here, whatever you think, if I missed anything. But it's all going to come down to the Cole Anthony stuff. I mean, he's almost at a 25% usage rate, which I wasn't prepared to see. I thought it was a lot lower than that. But that's a meaningful chunk of how the offense works. I don't believe that usage is going to go to like a guy like Anthony Black, for example. I would anticipate he does get the start at 4,200 if he was to miss. So I'm kind of taking that 25% and kind of giving it to Paulo and Franz. And that's the interesting side. Like, I don't want to recommend this as a play, but once I saw that number and kind of took the approach that they're going to add more usage to both those guys and nobody else is really going to step into that role. If you're making a ton of lineups, please tell me if I'm wrong, but a very interesting build on a 7-game slate would just be taking Franz and Paulo and getting a piece from the Raptors and being different than the rest of the field, because the people that are making 150 are doing what you're doing here. And if I was to say, okay, I'm going to max one of these guys, they're getting to 0 builds of those guys. Do I believe that they can both put up 60 DraftKings points? Necessarily not. I mean, but who knows? I mean, that's how you win GPPs. But that would be my first and really only thought of this game would be, how do I get different if I'm making a ton of the lineup? And if you're playing is it the $8 tonight on DraftKings, if I'm not mistaken?
I believe so.
Yeah, but that would be an avenue that I would think like, hey, can I get the highest scoring Raptor on one side and get all of the offense essentially from the Magic side? And if that game was to go OT, if this game was to get to a 220 and something on total, if Paulo was able to rack up a double-double, flirt with the triple-double, and Franz score a ton of points, I believe there's avenues. Now, this isn't make 150 lineups and have a huge percentage of it. I'm saying if you have a big portfolio, I don't mind that as an avenue. And really the only other guy I have to talk about in this game before I pass it to you is Wendell Carter at 5,500. We've attacked the Raptors with big guys. He's still getting his minutes. And if this was a spot he was able to get to double-digit real-life points, that's where you really see his ceiling. And if he's able to score 14 tonight, and be able to double-double, then he'll be able to extremely, exceed his tag at 5,500. But that's really all I have in this game. I have a little value with Walter at 3,700. I guess we could talk about Anthony Black at 42 if he was to get a start, but I think in that situation, I'd rather go to a guy like Neesmith or Nembhard for a few $100s more rather than competing with Paulo and France from a usage perspective, and then a little Wendell Carter to kind of sprinkle on top.
100% agree with your last point. I don't think there's enough usage at 4,200 for Black. Good defender, but he can very well just stand in the corner and be a cardio guy. I made that rule at first. Max 1, Paulo, Franz, and I still do lean that with the 7-game slate and like how much they both fully hit their ceiling. But you definitely made a good point. I'm like, people will make that rule right away. I think it's better in probably smaller field stuff where you don't need the stone cold nuts. Like the flagship 40,000 people, you probably want 55 plus from both Paulo and Franz. Obviously, it's all slate dependent. Who knows? Whereas in the smaller field stuff, 47 from Franz and 47 from Paulo, that could get you there in a 300, 400 man contest. I also, when you were talking, you didn't like really Toronto much, but just say you were to like Scotty Barnes. I would use a rule use exactly, or actually I could do that too. I could go on the Magic side. I like the Toronto side more because if I'm using Franz or Paulo, by no means do I need to force a Toronto guy. But if I am using one of like Scotty, hold on. So here, if I'm using one of like Barrett, Quickly, Scotty, let's just say, like if they absolutely go off, you think this game probably hits the over, people on the Magic are forced to catch up. If you're playing one of these very, very low-owned Raptors, use at least one, and then you can go to the Orlando side of Franz, Paolo. If you want to throw Wendell in there, you could, but that's something I like doing. On spots and teams I don't like much, I don't want to play many Toronto. If I were to, though, I'm going to make sure I do play one of the studs on Orlando. Hope you're overspending for one of these three, but they have a ceiling game. You expect two really solid point per dollar plays on the other side, a little chalkier. You don't care because they're all low owned to come with it there. So that's how I build the rule. And then if you wanted to make a rule max one Paulo Franz, I would just do another rule, and then you'd only get one of those two with the Toronto. You would not be allowed to get both. Any final thoughts on that before we get to the next one?
Just to kind of go to that point. Absolutely. I mean, that's how it's supposed to go. Franz and Paulo. I'm not suggesting this as like a crazy play for tonight that's going to win you the slate, but I'm just kind of suggesting if I had 150, you make somewhere between 2 and 5 lineups that include both. And that's more of just the idea of, hey, if Cole Anthony misses, they're going to get extra usage. That would lead to some assists here for Paulo. Those can kind of, play really well with Franz and them. So definitely a way off the board play, but something to think about for a lineup or two when making 150.
For sure. And another thing to go based on that, then we'll get to the next game. Only 2 players, 10K and above, Trey and Giannis. But you're looking at like point per dollar stuff. I mean, 8.2K for Paulo, 8.1K for Franz. That's not completely breaking the bank. Like a little over 16K. There's enough value on this slate. They can easily outscore Tyrese, Amon Thompson, Giddey, D-Mitch, Fox. Like if they all outscore all of them in that range, both of them, like it could be on the winner. They're appropriately priced. The usage is good. Only gets better without Cole Anthony. Again, in larger field stuff, it's really hard to see them both hitting their 99% outcome. You don't need that in smaller field stuff. So I think we hit on that game a good bit. Let's move to definitely a good game to target on the slates. The Milwaukee Bucks take it on the Atlanta Hawks. Bucks 5.5 point favorites. 243.5 total. Big boy total in this one. Injuries. Kyle Kuzma went from doubtful to questionable. So a midday upgrade. Still without Bobby Portis, of course. No Pat Con. On the Atlanta side, absolutely no new injuries to talk about. Start with the Kuzma stuff. Anytime you see an upgrade, I always look at that as probably in. Downgrade, I look at that more so being out. Hopefully we do get the news, though. Only 30 minutes after lock at 7:30. Definitely a game to target, though, in my opinion. And we do have the most expensive player on the slate. Giannis at 11K, and I would argue that is probably still 1K too cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is the game of the night here, guys. I mean, by far and away, if you're making, a small group of lineups, this would be the game you want pieces from. Couple of quick notes, pretty obvious, but let's get them out of the way. Hawks are 3rd in transition points. They're giving up the 8th most. Hawks are also giving up a ton of rim points. And the Bucks are bad versus the ball handler in the pick and roll. So as we kind of see that with a 242 total, we want to get players. So first and foremost, and additionally, the Hawks obviously, played last night. So I think the real question, like what you said for the Kuz stuff, is everybody obviously likes Giannis tonight. Top play. We want to target him in matchups like this. Yes, he's, right around that low 30 minutes number. We haven't seen the true ceiling as we've seen in the past. So, he's going to lose 5-6 minutes or so in the low 30s. So we're all going to play him. The next question is Dame. And I think the Dame stuff for me is going to hinge upon the Kuz stuff. If Kuz is out automatically, like I want to get to Dame, but I'm going to take a second look at if I want to get to him with Kuz in. Now, if Kuz is in, I'm not touching Kuz. Yes, he's playing tons of minutes, but we talked about it a couple weeks ago. I believe it was me and Ham and me. he's like the worst efficient shooter in the league. This is getting shots, but the ball doesn't go in, right? He's just a chucker, and it's not fun to watch. 6,200, just too much. So I personally won't be making any lineups with him. If he beats me, he beats me. If this is the one night he decides to shoot more than 50% from the field, absolutely, like, I'll take my L and keep moving forward. But Giannis, by far and away, my favorite play of the entire slate. Even if he does continue to play his 32 minutes, all over that at 11K, followed by Dame. If Kuz is out, I think it's the biggest bump will go to Gary Trent at 4K. He is getting some ownership, double digits-ish at 4K. He's an okay option. I mean, this would be an option that, if I am running back multiple Hawks, then I'll be okay with. But I don't think if I'm playing 0 Hawks in my lineup, I'm going to get to him as like a very strong value play, if that makes sense. But that's kind of where I stand from the Bucks. It's your decision if you're going to play Giannis and or Dame in one of these extra pieces. I didn't touch on Brooks, so I'll touch on Brooks before I jump off to the Hawks side. Brooks is flirting with that 6K tag again. This isn't a spot where you're like, oh, hey, he's a center versus the Hawks, because he's not like a true center. He spends so much time on the 3-point line. But it's kind of fun to roster him. He gets no ownership all the time. He always seems to, not only chuck shots, but he's real efficient from the 3-point line, in these games where he continues to make buckets. So he's like the typical GPP play when I think about one. When he hits shot fall, he exceeds his tag, and when it doesn't, he doesn't. Obviously, no rebounding comes along with that. But if you are making a handful of game stacks, definitely want some pieces of him, especially if you're getting to let's say we're making, 20 lineups out of 150 where I want to stack this game with multiple Bucks and multiple Hawks. I think a great, thought is to go, okay, I'm going to take Giannis, obviously, because I really like this spot in the high-paced matchup. And with him, I'm going to pair him or Lopez, Lillard, Kuz if you want to play him, Gary Trent, whoever it may be. So that would be an approach for me, and that might be an approach tonight when I make 3 lineups. But really, that's all I have from the Bucks side. Jumping over to the Hawks side, this is a really interesting spot. They obviously played last night, kind of a letdown spot for Trey, and then all these kind of value pieces, if you will, played really well. The Niang stuff is really interesting. So I believe that Barlow will start at 3,500. I don't think he's obviously a play at all. He's going to start on Giannis. I think, he's going to try and, contain him the best he can. But once he is out of the ball game, here comes Niang, 4,200. He obviously he missed last night with an illness, didn't travel, if I'm not mistaken. But he started the second half in the previous game. So interesting spot. Has been playing really well since he's been coming over. And one of my biggest kind of thought process on the night is, do I want a guy that could definitely destroy a tag at 4,200 because he does shoot the ball, and when his shot falls, he has extreme upside? Or do I want to go with like the guaranteed mid 30 minutes and like a Nembhard or Neesmith? So that would be if the slate started in 5 minutes, where I would be a huge decision point for me. But I really like him. LeVert off the bench, another outstanding game last night. He went for 25, 3 and 5 and 45 DraftKings points. So he's certainly in play in a matchup like this with a huge total and a nice close spread. I kind of skipped over Trey and Dyson because I don't think this is a spot where I want to get to too much of them. Yes, great spot for Trey, as I alluded to, the Bucks ball handler in the pick and roll. They kind of give up points to, but he's 10K. So the real decision point for me is, do I go to Trey, or do I just take my $1,000 and spend elsewhere and play Dame? And I think I'm more comfortable playing Dame than Trey. Dyson Daniels up to 7K. He's fun to roster because he has the huge stock upside and been playing really well since the trade deadline and All-Star break. But I am curious to see, tough matchup last night, and then coming back over, less than 24 or at 24 hours and playing in another huge spot with huge minutes. Additionally, for him, he's been really efficient from 2-point, but he takes 0 threes. Obviously has shown us upside outside of that, but tough to spend 7K on him tonight when I have some other options around that price range. When we know he doesn't have any 3-point upside, obviously stocks and stuff, but just a thought. And then Okongwu at 62 continues just to be on his tear, continues to get minutes, continues to be really productive. I don't mind him. Yes, you have Giannis and Brook on the other side, but more of a secondary play for me with the amount of ownership that is coming into him. If his ownership was low, I'd be smashing it, but this is one of those instances where I'm going to kind of zig when the field is zagging. So sorry, I was kind of all over the place there. To kind of round up before I pass to you, love Giannis, and I love pairing him with one of these guys. I'm going to take Kuz out of that pairing pool personally, and then jumping over to the Hawks side. I think I'm more inclined to get to one of these Leverts or Niangs or a Kongwu's before I get to Dyson Daniels and Trae Young.
Great breakdown. I definitely agree. Like, there's no way I want to get to Trae at 10K. I'd rather find 1K for Giannis, rather find 1K or save the 1K for Dame. And there's also many of like Franz, Paulo for almost 2K cheaper. Obviously different positions, but send me that way. Niang looks like very solid chalk. I think Rio hates him, and I've always liked him, Iowa State guy. He's just a very steady player, and his usage is really solid, like sitting about like the 20% mark. Again, he's going to get some ownership. I like that ownership more than I like a Kongwu for 2K more at a center position where you only can play 2 centers max, and it's a pretty good center slate. Now, he's going to get some ownership again. It's going to be somewhat contained because there is so many good centers. I was looking, like, how much do you weight how players have done against that specific team, like, that year? Assuming everyone's healthy and all that, do you put really any stock into it? Because I was like, man, a Kongwu, for that price, he can put up 55, 60. He's done it multiple times, breaks the slate, he's on the winner. I like taking those shots more when he's lower owned. This year, he hasn't really been great by any means against the Bucks. How much do you weight that?
It's really hard because not only, there's obviously avenues to finding out the information, like who played, who was out, all that jazz. But it's really hard to kind of do the next step of homework and understanding, okay, well, were they on a back-to-back? Were they traveling, And these little injury things, yes, you could be like, okay, this person was out, but there could be an instance where you can't find it very easily. But, oh, hey, well, this guy got extended run and played really well in December, but XYZ was also missing the last 3 games, and his minutes were limited in that spot. So I think there's too many external values that enter that pot of trying to decide who's going to play. But obviously, if we have these guys that continue to produce first teams, I'm more inclined to do that. But NBA is such a night-to-night sport, and players are people just like us. Hey, 2 weeks ago we had a great show, but today I had to deal with this and deal with that. So that's kind of the approach I take on it. Obviously, good spots, yes, but I don't want to give it such a consideration into who I'm playing.
I think that's a phenomenal breakdown. Again, you really have to, if you are looking at stuff, really dive in the weeds. Like, was there foul trouble? Like, was Clint Capella playing at that time? Was he averaging the same amount of minutes? Game flow, just did the game go small? You can't really just look at the box score and then automatically translate it. You'd have to dive a little deeper. But yeah, I say for MMA all the time too, like, these guys are humans at the end of the day. Like, same like us, bad days, good days, they have a life going on too. You don't know exactly what's going. So much variance on the day to day. I agree with you. I thought that was a phenomenal breakdown, and I approach it the same way when looking at stuff like that. All right, let's keep it rolling. Appreciate all 340 of you watching. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. We do very much appreciate it. Bringing you shows on this channel for free pretty much every single day. Next game on the slates, Wardo's New York Knicks, 5.5-point favorites over the Golden State Warriors, 227.5 total. Injuries on this one, Steph is questionable. Gary Payton is out, so a big Q tag there for the Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns is questionable. Huge Q tags. Obviously, this game is at 7:30 Eastern, so only 30 minutes after lock. Hopefully, we do get it before lock. If we don't, I guess maybe that's, like, if you're debating 2v2s or something, that's even more of a reason to be a little under on these first 2 games. A piece 2, 3 max maybe would be fine. But if we don't have the really important Q tag news by the time this game locks, I'd be a little more hesitant to lock in a ton. Should get it, hopefully, though, 30 minutes after. Towns, Steph, do you have any leans on them? And then break down this game.
Yeah, first of all, shout out to Wardo. I appreciate him being in the chat and explaining the personal, because it's not an injury, if I'm not mistaken. It's a personal issue.
It is personal. And wow, personal. I didn't know it was he broke up with his girlfriend, and he's questionable with a broken heart. Oh,
hey, man, love is love, man. Everybody acts different. But also, shout out to Wardo. I think we're on like a running total of like 6 or 7 shows where he's gotten a shout out. So we'll try. Going.
I thought of that. I'm like, all these people watching, Wardo's one of the. I try and say hi to a lot of names in here, but boy, Wardo, he's always in the Discord. He's always participating. Shout out Wardo. A lot of guys in the Discord. The Jay Anthony's, the Pair by Sean Sullivan's. Jordan, so many great OGs in the chat. But
it's just funny. But yeah, I think the cat stuff is really important because if it was a regular questionable tag, not only him, but all these Knicks, they play through those. So before I figured out what it was, I anticipated him in. The Curry stuff is interesting. Like I kind of brought up to you pre-show, it's an ankle injury. You know, his ankles historically for his career have been tough and bad injuries for him. So I'm kind of leaning in two avenues. This is hopefully the news comes out so we have a decision. I'm going to be under the impression of really only having one play if he was ruled in. This like isn't a spot that I want to target. You know, obviously the Warriors, they played last night. The Warriors need wins kind of for their season-long standings. Who doesn't want to play, and not only that, but play well in New York. So I'm going to take the approach that he's going to play if he can. Like you said, his ankle, you know, if he can play, if the ankle's going to let him play, he'll play. If not, he's not. If he's in, I only have one play from this game. And it's kind of like way off the radar type stuff, but it's pods at 5,900. Now, why he's been playing well, he's kind of like in the good graces of Kerr, if you will now, a sub 6K price tag. But this would be kind of the easy spot here to not play some of these, you know, older guys like the Currys, the Butlers, the Draymonds, not give them full extended run. Now, yes, they're going to play normal, but maybe they miss a rotation. Maybe they sit on the bench a little bit longer than they're supposed to. Just because we're closing on the season, these guys are old, they are banged up. So he would really be my only play. Now, obviously, he jumps up to a really good play if Curry was to sit tonight. But that's really all I have from the Warriors side. Just too many guys, too many minutes questions. Their prices are all very fair. And I'm just kind of targeting where I could see real value come out. And that's if, you know, Pods gets an extra 5 minutes and these, you know, vets, if you will, play 3-4 minutes each less. Well, that could lead to a handful of shots for Pods. You know, he shot 16 times last night. So if he was able to stay around that number again, I think there definitely is room there. But like I said, if he's out, then you can get behind some Jimmy, then you can get behind some Pods. Not really Draymond for me. You know, I want to target him when his salary's low in good spots when he is playing with Curry. But that's where I stand on the Warriors side. To the Knicks side, kind of the same thing. I mean, if Cat's in, I'm going to want to play Cat, especially if he's playing for his broken heart, you know, and wants to go show out and have a huge game and post his name everywhere. But sub 10K, you know, I mean, we always want to play him sub 10K, and he's also obviously has a 70-point ceiling. So I like him. Brunson definitely in play. Hart definitely in play. I could get behind Bridges and OG as kind of secondary plays. But this really isn't a Warriors team that I want to pick on. You know, obviously having Butler and Green in the starting lineup together is a very tough defensive matchup. Yes, they'll play huge minutes. Yes, their tags, you know, have upside in them, but not finding a whole lot in this game. So really the kind of the hinging point for me is if Curry's in or out, what does that mean? If Curry is out, it's going to be all the Pods, get behind a little Jimmy. But if Curry's in, I still get to Pods and then fewer Knicks, if that makes sense.
100%. I agree with all that as well. Would you set any like max 1 Towns Brunson, max 2 Knicks period? Any that you wouldn't want to play together? Any thoughts on that? Or again, if I'm indifferent to it, then I kind of just let Sabersim do its thing. Because again, if you click right here on like Towns and you scroll down, Rio showed me this a little bit, you can see the negative or positive correlation, like awful with Precious and Nitrob. Obviously that makes sense because they don't share the court together, where guys like again, this is where you're a little more likely to get Steph in the lineup if you're playing Cat, because they positive correlate a little bit. 2 studs go back and forth, etc. Like a Bridges, 0. Brunson, negative 0.02. I look at that as pretty much means absolutely nothing. So you can do it that way, but I also like to ask you, Rio, the I know balls too, to add a little more stuff. Would you do anything like that?
Yeah, for me, I like the approach that you have. Like, I don't really have a take. So from there, I'm going to kind of let Saber do its thing. I guess who I didn't bring up is, you know, if Curry sits, who would start in his place? And I think that would be important to kind of setting your mins and maxes here, or if then, you know what, I'm kind of stuck. And that's why, obviously, I hope we get the news before lock, because I could see avenues where they start, let's say, post and go big versus a big and strong team versus the Knicks. Or I could see avenues where they start Buddy and they just need to have a scoring option on the floor. So I don't think that I would play Buddy and Pods together. I think that would be kind of a max one for me. I think, you know, just because Pods' price is a little up there and they kind of take away from that spot. But That would be the only one if, like, gun to my head, you got to make a decision. But personally, I'm hoping that they start like post and go big, and pods can take a million shots at no ownership. And well, it'll be higher if Curry's in, but you know what I'm saying. So it takes 16 last night. I don't want Buddy on the floor to take away from those 16. Sub 6K, I think he would be an interesting avenue, but that's kind of where I stand.
Makes a lot of sense, BJ. Let's keep it rolling. Great work so far. 3 games left on the slates. Next game also, actually, no, not also. This one's at 8 p.m. Eastern. Cleveland Cavaliers, 12.5-point favorites over the Chicago Bulls. 243.5 total. Injury news in this one, no Evan Mobley. So that's pretty big news on this slate. For the Chicago side, no Vooch, no Io, who's out for the year. Giddey, Lonzo, and Kevin Huerter are all questionable. This is
I'm
kind of
checking to see if there's any new news. Sorry.
No, that definitely
regarding them. Nothing yet. Okay, because it is huge. This is the spot on the slate. Sorry to interrupt.
For sure, it 100% is. And like again, this is 8 p.m. Eastern, 1 hour after lock. If we don't have any of this news before these first 2 games, again, I'm not saying fully fade them or you have to, but I don't want to be 4 people, 5 players exposed to it and have very little wiggle room because Giddey, Lonzo, and Huerter all questionable with no Io for the year and Vooch. And Bulls are a team we love to pick on. On the other side, very fast-paced, no defense. On the other side, no Mobley. Yeah, we sort by ownership. You can tell it's a good game to target. Value, it's a great game to target. Take it away. Who's your favorites, rules, etc. I'll just let you take the stage.
Yeah, so this is interesting, and after I'm kind of done with my spiel here, I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are on it because when you look down, I mean, what here on the Stone we have 6 players, obviously all in double digits, but it's like the mid-teens. I mean, we got Ty Jerome off the bench at almost 16%, Donovan Mitchell 16, Garland at 20, Strus at 18, Hunter at 13, Jared Allen at almost 27%. So, I mean, I get it, man. Like, this is what's so hard, and I think this is going to dictate the slate, obviously. Like, how many Cavs? Is this the game I'm going for? Am I okay eating into ownership? Do I dare say the word blowout, questionable, right? You know what I mean? Like, some guys are either all in on the, hey, I think it's a blowout game, or other guys are saying, well, it's the NBA. We can't predict it, as we've seen specifically over the last week or so. So the way that I'll kind of land on it is obviously and easily my favorite play is Jared Allen at 6,200. Mobley out, obviously. This is a team that, he's going to be able to not only get rebounds against, I think this is a good scoring spot for him. 62 is too cheap for him in a spot like this. He should be in the 7Ks. So he'll be my favorite. The next would be my decision between Mitchell and Garland. But see, this is where I get stuck because, like, how many points is needed at 8,700? We'll call it at least high 40s to have a chance at winning a tournament. And does he, receive that ceiling in 3 quarters if he goes off and scores a ton of points and is able to, take the Bulls completely out of the game? Does he play bad and let this Bulls team stay in it? What I mean by that is, like, I see more avenues to seeing this game staying close if Mitchell, Garland, Allen don't play well and the Bulls get to stay in it versus the Bulls playing outstanding against a good defense and keeping the game close. So there'll be secondary plays for me making a decision specifically, not only because of the blowout, but also too because of the ownership. And then it's going to bring in guys like Strus, Hunter, Ty Jerome. I'm going to go Ty Jerome for the blowout stuff. He'll eat up all the blowout time. He's been playing awesome. Obviously, we've seen a handful of times this season where his upside is in the 40s and the 50s. So he'll be kind of my, favorite play between the 3. But I'm curious to see how they kind of play with DeAndre Hunter's minutes at 5,300. I'm curious to see what Strus's minutes end up being. And normally when I have takes like that, my first thought is to, I'm going to pick my favorite plays and fade and hope it doesn't kill me. But if you like the Bulls side, which we're going to get to, and it's all going to be based off the injury stuff, then absolutely you're going to want to get to at least one of these Cavs because one of these guys at these tags will be able to exceed it and give you tournament winning upside. So on my sheet here, I have max 1 Cav for the slate because, of almost a 130 team total. And one of these guys, like I said, has the opportunity to help you win a tournament. But I could also see avenues where you go max 2 Cav and you get multiple Bulls on the other side. For the Bull stuff,
max 1, max, or you saying minimum 1 Cav?
2 different builds. I guess what my thought would be, if you think the game stays close and you get multiple Bulls, I'm okay with maxing 2 Cavs.
Okay.
If you're on the other side of the street where you're saying, hey, look, I don't think it's a game, I still want to get to a Cav. I don't know necessarily which one. I don't know if it's going to be Allen, Mitchell, or Garland, but I think with a team total of 128, 127, that somebody there will be able to create enough value for you, even if it is Ty Jerome.
So you maybe min 1 Cav, because that's what I was I was thinking maybe min 1 in this game. And again, min 1, max 1, it's a big that's why I wanted to chime in, because I was going to say something completely different than you, but they're just all fairly priced. Like, this is what stands out the most to me. If I'm min 1 in this game, and it mainly would come from the Cavs side, but I do like some of these Bulls. Like, if I just have Strus, it's $4,500. Fine. Jared Allen's obviously the obvious one. 6'2", doesn't break the bank. Just a Jerome, fine. If I have a Mitchell or Garland, again, I'm fine playing 2 of these guys. I don't even think playing Jared Allen, Max Strus, and Garland is the craziest thing, and I would want a Bull there. But I myself was debating having a min 1 in this game, and more than likely my teams will probably have at least 2 in this game, because you're going to touch on the Bull side. Obviously, it's tough to do right now with all the Q tags, but even if they're all in, you can see a lot of them look great. If 3 of them are out or 2 of them are out, like some of these guys, Kobe Whites of the world, Matas Bazulis of the world, if all 3 of these guards are out, like Trey Jones at 3,900 has to play it. Like, I just feel like regardless of the injury news on the Bulls side, I probably want at least 1 Cav. I love picking on the Bulls, and at least one of these Bulls are going to be somewhat appealing. So what are your thoughts on, I guess, min 1 of this one?
No, you're right. Now, after I say it, that's correctly. That's exactly what I was thinking. So I'm getting to the extra Cavs player when I'm getting multiple Bulls.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
I love it.
Much better said by you. So my mistake. And then jumping over to the Bulls side, with the injury news we have, I mean, I think it's still going to be really tough to make a decision. So to allude to what you said prior, I mean, this is leaving spots open in your lineup to make changes. Prime example last night, one of my lineups, I got stuck with Quentin Grimes and Maxey. And, when the Rockets news comes out, you can't get to the combos that you want. So leave up some spots, get ready to kind of react from this game. I guess the best way to break it down would be, if one of these Bulls are out, it's going to be Buzelis for me at 4,700. We know he can handle the minutes. We know he has upside. I think he plays a ton of minutes in this game, regardless of the outcome of the game. If Lonzo or Giddey or who else, Waiter was able to miss, I think he is the biggest beneficiary personally. If they're all in, it's tough for me to get behind Alonzo Ball at 30% ownership, or maybe he gets teamed up at 4,700. Yes, he's a good play. Yes. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I agree with that. I was just saying Giddey, like he'd be, even though you're spending for him, like he's the one that has the upside to break the slate. And that's part of the reason I don't love going like a Franz Paulo together, is like right there, I could just go, how many, like the 99th percentile outcomes. Giddey's done it multiple times as of late. Like he's someone I would like at this ownership.
Do you have a lean if he's in or out?
I do not have a lean. I would 100% be lying if I said I had a lean. I have no clue. That's something to take real. And Chad, again, if you have access to NBA chat, he might not have any lean either, but that is the access you do get. Sharp minds like BJ, like Rio. If you want that question answered, give him a tag in Discord. If he doesn't know, he doesn't know either. But I don't hype the Discord up enough. I mean, man, by far one of the best communities out there in the industry. So much fun. So many awesome people. Like I said, always say Mordo's name, Sean, Jordan, guys that have been around forever. It's fun.
And what's funny too is if you miss, like, let's say like you make lineups and you go out to dinner with your girl, whatever it is, you come back 3 hours later, there's like 1,000 messages, right? Like it just, you can't catch up. So, I missed a day on Saturday kind of being out the loop, and it's like, dang, man, I feel like I've been gone for like a week. There's been so much, but shout out to the best Discord out there. I mean, just the information we get and the different minds talking is just amazing. But to kind of jump back to the Bull side, if Giddey's out, it's going to be Kobe White. It's going to be Buzelis. I mean, it's still tough for me to get behind Lonzo at 4,700. If he's in, yes, play him. Yes, play Buzelis. Yes, play Zach Collins, 6K. Obviously, Jalen Smith being back, he's going to hurt his upside a little bit, but I think there's definitely still room at 6K for him from the upside that we've seen and how many minutes he's playing to be able to be profitable for your lineups. We can go Phillips, Jones, Terry. If any, if the multiple of these guys miss, all those guys will be in play. But please continue off of this if you have anything to add. But we just can't make a decision because we have no clue, no lean. And so that's where I'll kind of leave with it. I think Buzelis, no matter what, is going to be my favorite play. If everybody misses after that, I mean, it's going to be, if this person's out, I like this person. If this person's in, I don't like this person type stuff. So that's where I'll kind of leave it. And the last thought I have to let you jump in is Lonzo is pretty much going to be off my radar personally at 47 with the popularity. I just can't click 4,700 Lonzo with not much upside at 30% ownership.
Makes a lot of sense to me. And again, that's what I put the max 15%. If you're playing 100 teams, by no means just because BJ doesn't like Lonzo that you should have 0%. The reason to play 100 teams instead of one is because you want to diversify your portfolio more, but you're forcing yourself to get underweight. I think we covered this game very well in the aspect of I probably have min one of this game. A lot of it will be Cavs. If I play Cavs, I'm more likely to play a Bull. If all those Q-Tag Bulls are in, I still do like Montes, like you said, Giddey, like you said. If any of those guys are out, those like the Giddey, if Lonzo's out, Giddey gets a bump, Herter gets a little bump. If all three of them are out, the Trey Jones, the Terrys of the world. So we just can't do anything yet. I want to see the starting lineup when the guys are announced out. I want to see projections. I want to see ownership. I want to see all of that. And again, that circles all the way back. If we don't have that news at lock, again, this game at 8 Eastern, these games at 7 Eastern, I would be a little cautious on how many people you play in the first two games. 3 probably max in the first 2 is how I'd approach it because I do want wiggle room. If you had no lineup spots yesterday for the Rockets game and you couldn't get on Cam Whitmore, you probably didn't have a good day. Like, not saying we're going to have the exact same situation as a Cam Whitmore, but I want to make sure I do have roster spots available. Probably the best game to target on the slate. No Mobley for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Great matchup against the Bulls, and the Bulls with 3 big Q tags and no Vooch. All right, so that's a lot of time on that game, but obviously for a good reason. Probably the game of the slate in terms of DFS. Next game on the slate, 2 games left. This one at 8 p.m. Eastern as well. Philadelphia 76ers, 14.5-point underdogs to the Minnesota Timberwolves. 219.5 total. Injuries on the Philly side. No Tyrese Maxey. Then Paul George, Quentin Grimes, and Justin Edwards, all questionable. 3 important pieces that get minutes, obviously. Minnesota side, no Rudy Gobert. Julius Randle is questionable. Throw it right to you in this one. Big spread, not something I love to target. But if we do sort by value, couple above 5X. Looking at ownership, not much ownership in this game. Julius Randle with the Q tag showing this much ownership. I mean, man, if that is the case, I do not need much Julius Randle in my life. But yeah, at price, if he plays, he is going to be very popular. No Gobert, though, does add some rebounding upside to him. What are you doing in this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of allude to, like, I think I said it in the Discord like a week and a half ago, but Sixers are officially in tank mode, right? And end of the season, I believe they're a top 6 protected pick, and I think they're in 6th right now. So they want to lose games. Shows it with the spread. Went from 13.5 this morning, I believe, all the way up to 14.5. The extra point, does mean something, especially when it's that high. But yeah, we're going to get value here. I mean, first of all, we'll start with, is it pronounced Doughton or Downton? Jeff
Doughton, I think, but I do not know for sure.
We'll go with Doughton because that's what I was kind of thinking too. Whoever starts between him and Butler, I'm going to obviously want to get huge exposure to. Personally, like, I don't mind. Like, here's an example before we dive super into the game. If Doughton gets the start tonight and he's going to gather, 5-6 times the amount of ownership that Butler's going to get, right? Here's a prime example. Like, okay, like, everybody's going here and he becomes a smash play at 31 or 3,200, but play that guy off the bench, specifically him, because we've watched him all season just kind of like get pissed off and like score points, and has like great upside. And so I'll kind of check the box of, if Butler starts, I will have pretty much all my exposure to Butler. If Butler ends up coming off of the bench, I'll still get exposure to him. But I just believe that's a guy that, especially at 3,100, if he gets any minutes, not only getting the minutes gives him upside, but he does have the potential to score lots of points when he's able to shoot and drive to the rim. So really like him. Obvious, he'll be popular. Kelly Oubre is going to be popular tonight. I really like him. Yeah, 6,400. even if Paul George plays, just no Maxey just opens up the entire team. I think in a blowout, if the Wolves just run them out of the building, I still think he gets his fair allotment of minutes. So I like him at 64. If Quentin Grimes ends up playing the game, 6K is a little too much for me. You know, that would be my first question to you. Like, when is too much? You know, what price is too much for him? Last night was kind of flirting with it in the mid to high, 5,800, I believe, last night, and I was kind of thinking about it, and I still got to him. But 6K, I think, is going to be too much. Would you agree with 6K being too much, or you still want exposure?
If PG was out, I think I'd still want some exposure. No Maxey, no PG. We haven't really seen anything like that. He could take on 38 minutes.
Well, he's playing like 37 minutes already, right? So
26% usage. Yeah. Like if his usage jumps to something like that at 6K, I'd be fine with it if Paul George is out. If Paul George is in, it's a little tougher for me. I hope we see all these guys out and Ricky Council start. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I love Ricky Council at min price with a G League squad. Like he can fill it up in a hurry.
Lonnie Walker Council.
Yeah.
Well, like that. Which one would you take?
Council.
Okay.
But they have similar playing styles. I thought you were comparing them a little bit. Just the athletic guys that like to get downhill. I'd probably go. I'd take the starter, but obviously projections aren't. Yeah, projections aren't agreeing with me right now. I don't know. I guess it's.
I lean Lonnie just a little bit. That's just kind of showed some upside last night, so that's where I'll kind of sit there. But
is minutes you think are a lot safer?
Yeah, I mean, what do we have projected at? Let's see.
Ricky's hardly being projected. Again, these are just I would need PG out, maybe even Grimes out. It depends. If he got the start, I wouldn't need both of them out. But PG's the main one because of the usage. But if they're both out, I guess I'd just probably lead in the starter. If neither of them starts, though, that's
go with the starter, and then be curious to see what kind of percentage you end up with as you get let Sabre do its thing. But yeah, another question, not question, but the decision point for me is the Andre Drummond stuff, right? Still at 5K, had 25 real life points last night. He was popular, but 25 real lives from Andre Drummond. Come on, I mean, what world are we living in? But obviously had 55 DraftKings points, took 19 shots. So he'll be in play if he ends up getting the start. If Paul George was to miss, I think I'll still be out on him at 5K. Yes, had a huge night, but if you look, at this season, I mean, obviously his highest scoring output of the season, but how many times he's gone over 10, right? How frustrating to roster Drummond, let him see 11 rebounds and he has like 4 points and you're like chasing the extra 7.5 points of the double-double. But to kind of wrap it in and tie it in closer, I'm kind of getting a little off here. If Paul George is in, I don't mind Paul George. I don't mind Kelly Oubre, and I don't mind the starter that's starting at 3K for the guard for Maxey. And then additionally, if Paul George is out, Kelly Oubre, I get behind the Grimes at 6K, and then one of these 3K guys that's also coming off the bench. I think both the 3K guard that starts and the 3K forward that starts for Paul George, I don't believe that their minutes are going to matter whatever the score is. They're going to go out and play their high 20s, maybe even 30 minutes. The question will be Kelly Oubre. I still think the Kelly Oubre stuff, I think he still gets a fair amount of minutes, even in a blowout. He's still going to have to play basketball because who else are they going to play, right? Do they completely tank and lose the game by 50? So I'll go there. And then jumping over to the Wolves side, as you alluded to with the Randall stuff, I mean, he's just $1,000 too cheap if he does end up playing. He played 34 minutes in his first game back after taking just about a month off. I don't think it was less than that. I think it was just over a month. So really interested to see that. He played well. I believe it was, he didn't rebound super great and not very many assists, if I'm not mistaken. But obviously with no Gobert, I mean, they're going to go Nas and Randall. That sounds like a fun lineup to play. And especially when you get, $1,300 difference between Nas and Randall. Yes, I get behind the ownership, but at 32, 35, 37%, I wouldn't consider it like a must play. I think there's avenues to get away from it. And just in this game, I mean, yes, it's a $1,300 difference, but if the Wolves end up running them out of the building, I think, it's going to be behind Ant and behind Nas. So those are two really interesting pieces to kind of play with to get away from Randall Chalk. Not really in love with the DiVincenzo stuff or the Jaden McDaniel stuff. That's more of what to kind of say what you said. You said there, Sixers could be a G League team tonight. If that's the case, don't really love any of them, but if somehow this game does stay close, I mean, there's avenues to get upside here. I will, say we've seen Ant plenty of times this season in these kind of bad game spots where we don't anticipate them to play in the fourth quarter. He has huge scoring real life point outputs. And if that's the case, this could be a night where he's like, hey, I'm going to go score 45 tonight. And if that's the case, at not very much ownership, I like Ant. But that's pretty much all I have here. I mean, it's going to be the value of the Sixer size depending on who starts. And if you get a handful of Sixers, you're going to maybe want to get one of these, T-Wolves on the other side. And if I'm making 1 to 5 lineups, I'm going to try and get away from Randall where I can.
I love all that. Ant and Nas would be my favorite plays. Probably Ant, just for everything you said. Like, if Philly, 14.5-point dogs, Ant, they don't throw any double teams. Ant can just walk any of these guys. Oubre's probably on him. Maybe Paul George. Like, if Ant coming off a monster game 2 nights ago, like, it could just be the Ant show, 50 real ones. He gets it done in 35 minutes. Fair price tag at 9.3 and move on. Like, give me the 700 savings, him versus Trey. If I was to play an Ant, I don't even think I need a Sixer because, again, if he does it in 34 minutes and just completely nukes them, and like the Councils of the world, the Butlers of the world, if these PGs and Grimes were to miss or just one of them, like these guys are cheap enough and can play in the blowout. You don't necessarily need that exact correlation. I'd be good with Nas as well. I'd be good with 0 players in this game if PG and Grimes are also in with this big spread, pretty efficient pricing on both. So by no means a game I love, but I'm going to have roster spots like waiting for this Cavs-Bulls game, and maybe you are looking bad early or maybe an injury or whatever. You could get off some chalk, and this could be a pivot game right here, as well as this last one at 8:30 Eastern. Last game of the slate, San Antonio Spurs taking on the Brooklyn Nets. 3.5 total, or 3.5-point favorites are the Spurs. 229.5 total in this one. No injury news on the Brooklyn side for the San Antonio Spurs. Stephon Castle is questionable.
I think he got ruled in. Yeah, he's in.
Oh, he got ruled in? Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's been 95 million notifications for tomorrow. Rio and I are definitely in for a treat on that slate. But so no injury news. Castle's in. Nothing on the Brooklyn side. Looking at ownership, 3 guys above 10%. Looking at value, 4 technically, 5x and above. Doesn't really look like a spot I want to get too much of. How does like the Foxes compare to Garland, D-Mitch, Dame, some of these other point guards in that range? And yeah, I guess that's the main question I have for you. Not a game I really want to get much of. If you see some slate breaking upside though at low ownership, I am all ears.
Yeah, no, first of all, no, I don't. This is going to be like a non-target game for me. Your question regarding Fox compared to some other guys, I mean, that's going to be a very fair comparison. It's more of a, hey, do I want to play a guy that has the potential to, their team score a ton of points and maybe blow out? And then you see the Vegas total here, which, isn't the most inviting total, but I mean, it's a close game. I mean, when I first saw this spread, I was like, damn, the Spurs are that down bad per the eyes of Vegas, with obviously no Wemby and how they're playing basketball. But I think I lean Fox. I'm not super in love with the Garland, the Mitchell stuff. Trying to think of some other comparisons throughout the slate that could be interesting.
Giddey, Amin Thompson.
Giddey. I think Giddey definitely better than Fox. I think Fox and Amen's a very fair comparison. I still think I'd lead Amen there just because of the higher total and the possibilities of
Tyrese last
full
one.
Minute. Tyrese, you said?
Yeah.
I think
this is why I like building an MME portfolio. You play 1 to 3 teams, hopefully you get it right because you don't have room for everyone. You can sprinkle and make the lineups make sense with each other. But I like asking you, who has to make those decisions on a nightly basis. Your 1v1's quick there. And again, different game, but right on cue with 1v1s and stuff. Did you have a lean Paulo Franz if picking one?
If I had to pick one, I have ownership lower to Paulo, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll go him and his additional assist upside if Cole Anthony was to miss. But yeah, here for this game, don't really love anything, to be honest. I mean, from the Nets, side, I always like a little Cam Johnson, when they have all the injuries that they have, but Cam Thomas being back, I don't care if he's only playing. What did he play? He played, I don't have it written down, but he played like the high teens in minutes, I believe. I think it was like 18 and 16 minutes
21.
or something like that. 21. Okay, great. He still took his handful of shots. Then
17% usage. This dude is just insane.
He's a chucker. He's me at the Y. But what I thought, to kind of check the correct box is when he missed versus Detroit, Cam Johnson put up 20 shots without him. So anytime in the foreseeable future, with Thomas in, I can't get to Cam Johnson regardless of the minutes, just because of the amount of shots he takes. Don't want to get to any D'Lo stuff. Don't want to get to Zaire Williams. I guess I could get behind a little Claxton. But we saw him get 31 minutes and come back into mid to low 20s the last couple games. So tough to get around that. I mean, if you have a lean on him getting some extra run and kind of flirting with that 30-minute number again, I could absolutely get behind 5,700, but nothing stands out here. And I would not be opposed taking this team completely off of your player pool and moving on. And then jumping over to the Spurs side, I mean, it's really just Fox for me as the primary play. Seeing his ownership as high as it is interesting. I didn't think it would be this high. He was more of a better play in my eyes. I thought it was going to be like 9-10% owned with how slow the Nets play, but he's efficient, 8,200. He's going to get shots. He's going to get opportunities for assists. So I like him. And then secondary plays for me is Vassell and Keldon Johnson, and more of a Keldon Johnson thing, just because in these uglier style games, after he kind of plays high minutes too, he takes a couple of nights off as far as minutes goes. So this could be a higher minute night for him at 4,600, and that's me kind of begging for plays. I mean, I don't want to get behind Chris Paul at 5,300 versus slow team like the Nets that wants to play in the half court. Don't want to get behind, Bismack Biyombo. Don't want to get behind Barnes. I guess you can get Castle coming off the bench, but he's still 6,100, so it's not anything that I really love. So I'll keep it small there, and if I missed anything, but my kind of final thought on this game would be I have no problem Xing out the Nets and maybe getting a small exposure to Claxton, which if you're making 150 every night, like I could make an argument you always want to get a small percentage of him being the first guy to get to his 32-minute night that may come before the end of the season where he could win you a slate at mid 5Ks, and then Fox with the secondary plays of Vassell and Keldon Johnson.
I like it. The only one I would add in is Castle. And again, it's just very, very, very low ownership. We have less than 1%. In chalkier lineups, I mean, yeah, Castle's been hooping. Look at that. 44, 46, 40 DK points, 36, 27, 33, 29% usage. It's just been great. With Fox and Paul coming over, Castle's absolutely, his usage rate has skyrocketed. Still playing about 30 minutes. Him, Vassell, Keldon, I think I like all of them more than Fox. Man, the usage has been down for Fox. The price is there. He's competing with so many in the top tier. I'm not sure he gets that 60 bomb like some of those. Does Tyrese do it much? No, but I think he's more likely to. I think Giddey's more likely to. Probably think Amon's a little more likely to. I just prefer others in that range a little more. Not a game I really want much exposure to at all, though. Maybe a sprinkle on the Spurs side. I agree with you on the Nets. More times than not, like a Keon Johnson, I'd be fine with it. Fine with Claxton, fine. 7-game slate, though, 14 teams to choose from. I don't want the Nets to bury me on a slate like this. Absolutely. Any final thoughts on that?
Well, real quick question. This is more of like, your thought process before we get out of here. When you take like Castle in like his last 3 games, like he played against Houston, but that was like a high-paced game. I mean, what'd that total be in the 220s? Then you get Memphis and OKC where there was like, what is that? 160 total points and 260 total points and 270. How do you personally make that distinguishing between, okay, he's obviously playing well, taking 20 shots. I can't disagree there. Once I take a second look, you're like, oh, damn, he has been hooping, playing well. But now he's going against the Nets. Like, how much of a change in thought process do you think that is? Do you take that into consideration at all? Or obviously you probably do, but where do you stand on a situation like that?
I probably should take it in a little more than I do. What I did, like, there's just so much that I like 10 threes, 6 threes, 7 threes, 21, 16, 22 shots. It's hard for me. And again, you, Rio, you guys dive into all the weeds and all that a little more than me. It's still a 230 total. And it still feels like he's going to chuck. Like his usage in the past 3 weeks has just been phenomenal. And again, I don't know at each individual matchup, like how slow or fast relative, but I'm still looking at 30 minutes, probably taking 18 shots, maybe taking 6 threes at less than 1% ownership. And I do think he's a hooper. I think he's going to be a problem for a while. So I don't take probably that into consideration as much as I probably should. But again, when he's 1% owned, like I think that's all baked into it.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I mean, couldn't agree more. I mean, don't keep it simple, stupid, or like, you're failing because you think too much into it. So couldn't agree more.
Well, sometimes, yeah, but it's good. That's why, like, all I like knowing about that stuff. Like, obviously, the totals can say so much. On the Stone, we didn't show that, but it has pace. Very cool to see the pace. There's a premium content over here. Rio does a great job in the slate plan. Again, puts too much work into it. If you're a member, definitely click the slate plan, read it. Top tier, mid tier, lower tier. Make some adjustments in SaberSim, the Discord as well. But love picking up little nuggets from multiple people, but also want to have my own thoughts. Obviously, someone that watches basketball, plays on a nightly basis. And you can be the best DFS player in any sport without knowing anything about the sport. Having no biases, finding a process, studying what other sharper players do, little stuff like that. I mean, awesome stuff, BJ. Hour 15, talking the 7-game slate. Big boy prizes on both sites. Like always, again, we did share SaberSim. If you do want to check it out, the best optimizer out there with the best content at Chip and Nation for the most affordable price. As you can see, just want our content, $79 a month, $20 more. Get you SaberSim, 150 lineups with late swap. If you want the best value, $30 more than that. The starter pack, 500 lineups you can build with projections and ownership from SaberSim. So you can average it like we did there, and you get it in sports like the tennis and college basketballs that we don't offer if SaberSim does offer it, and contest flashback to study what the pros are doing. If you're playing $1,000 plus a month, maybe you should check out Contest Sims. So many YouTube videos SaberSim has. If you have any questions per sport, any questions you have, you can probably find that. Otherwise, we do have a SaberSim portion in Discord. Again, you can just go shipitnation.com, join the nation, and you'll be able to pick all packages, weekly, monthly, annual packages in there as well. Annual does give you the best deal if you know you're going to be with us fully. BJ, awesome stuff. Always love picking your brain. Hey, next thing you know, we'll be talking some MLB pretty shortly.
Can't wait.
Excited for that? Yeah, excited. It drags on a long time. But man, you're talking SaberSim and MLB stack exposure. I love it. Like NBA, stacking doesn't matter. I hardly ever look at this. Football, you can see like quarterback with your receiver, with the run back. Baseball, 5 2s, 4 3 1s. All of that makes it so easy. If you have like a 2-2-1-1-1 and you don't want that, easy X. Cannot wait for baseball, correlation sport, NHL going on, of course. Have that as well. Final thoughts, BJ? Awesome stuff.
Yeah, no. Final thoughts for me are, one, me and you got to do shows more often. I love doing shows with you. Obviously, love everybody on the team, but it's always good, like what you said, getting a whole nother, level of something you might not talk about. So obviously That's great. And then from a player perspective tonight, I think tonight is not the night to like play the most popular 4K guy. You as a player are going to decide, hey, whether it's Neesmith, Nembhard, Lonzo Ball, whoever it may be, you make your decision if you were going to play that guy or not, right? And I would suggest a little bit of a harder stance, right? Easy for me to say with 1 to 5 lineups, but make your decision there, because with 7 games, you have so many options, and all it takes is a 1v1 or a 2v2 to help you go from flirting with the min cash line, sweating until the last game, or sweating first to third place. So that would be kind of my first thought as I was building lineups, like where am I going with that 4K range?
Amen to that. I love that point. A lot of concentrated chalk in that 4K range right now. My final thoughts, be careful with the first 2 games, assuming we do not have some of this news, the Kuzmas, the Stephs, the Cats, the Giddies of the world, the Herders of the world, some important injury news after that first lock time. Always will be tagged in Discord too. Follow Underdog on Twitter. They will update as always. Hit that like, hit that subscribe on the way out. Hope everybody has a great Tuesday night. Again, chipandnation.com. If you do want to join us, all of our packages are there. Great stuff as always, BJ. Hope we do another show soon. Always fun talking to you. For BJ, I'm Titletown. Be safe. Have a good night. Win some money tonight. Peace.